In the back of the book segment tonight, Ground Zero Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf has announced that he intends to travel around the U.S. soon to make his case that a Ground Zero mosque is good, not just for Muslims, but for all Americans. So he's going to have one heck of a sales job to do on that one, especially as worries grow that a small but growing minority of American Muslims may be sympathetic to the radical ideology of jihad. Joining us from Washington is Frank Gaffney, the founder and president of the Center for Security Policy, who believes we are underestimating the threat from homegrown jihadists. Frank, honestly, I don't think we're certainly not at this network and not on some of the shows I'm on, do we underestimate the massive risk that we have with this growing jihadist ideology.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Eric. I think you do, in the sense that you miss, more often than not, the second part of the threat that this ideology, you call it the ideology of jihad, the more accurate way to describe it, I think, as we do in this book, Shariah, The Threat to America, which we published at the Center for Security Policy last month, is to describe it as Shariah. And the other piece of jihad that Sharia commands its adherents to follow is a kind of stealthy jihad, what the Muslim Brotherhood calls civilization jihad. And that is almost entirely missed by the media, by our government even, by academia. And as a result, guys like Faisal Abdul Rauf, who are prime practitioners of this stealth jihad, tend to get a pass, or worse yet, are sometimes lionized as moderate Muslims who are the opponents of this jihadism, when in fact they're simply prosecuting it by different means. You know,
Frank, you're the expert on this, but I've spent a lot of time at that Ground Zero mosque. I've actually been in the mosque. I've been in a helicopter above the mosque, pointing out that this is Ground Zero. It is 560 feet from Ground Zero. Some body parts have been found further away from there, and even some landing gear from one of the airplanes landed on the roof of this exact building. We pointed out that this is Ground Zero, and maybe that mosque should be moved a couple of blocks away as a symbolic gesture. Now, Imam Rauf doesn't want to. Go ahead.
The problem with that is, if I'm right, that Faisal Rauf is actually prosecuting the same ends as Al-Qaeda, the people who perpetrated that horrific attack, and you're absolutely right to characterize the larger area as hallowed ground. But if I'm right that he seeks, through stealthy means, to achieve the triumph of Sharia, to, in a way, sort of pre-violent kind of jihad to pursue it, then having 100%. Him have that mosque anywhere, Eric, is a problem, not just a couple of blocks away.
You can't say there shouldn't be a mosque in America. I mean, you're basically saying don't allow there to be a mosque anywhere. Go ahead.
Let me say how I would put it. A mosque that is used to promote a seditious program, which is what Sharia is, as practiced by Faisal Rauf, as practiced by Osama bin Laden, as practiced by the Saudis and the Iranians and so many others, that is not a protected religious practice. That is, in fact, sedition. And I think that we have to be clear about that and treat it accordingly.
Fair enough. Okay, so when this deal was announced, when El Gamal, who's the developer of the property, got together with Imam Rauf, the Imam Rauf's group, the Cordoba Initiative, had $18,000 in the bank account. I went and pulled the records on it, 18 grand. Somehow they're going to come up with $100 million or more to build a mosque, whether it's at Ground Zero or at the St. Vincent's Hospital site about a mile away. Where is that money coming from?
Well, we don't know for sure. These are very shady characters, and again, they've largely gotten a pass from the press because nobody wants to be seen as, well, racist or bigoted or Islamophobic, heaven forfend. But the truth of the matter is they're shady characters. Where they would almost certainly get the money is where about, by some estimates, as much as 80% of the mosques in this country get their money, which is from Saudi Arabia through a Muslim Brotherhood front organization known as the North American Islamic Trust.
Very important, Frank.
That's where they may well get the money for this mosque.
Most people who are watching the show may not know about the Muslim Brotherhood. Explain what the Muslim Brotherhood is.
Well, again, we devote a lot of time to it in this book. It is the single most insidious proponent of this sort of stealth jihad, civilization jihad. It is a multinational organization. It has not only operations in the Middle East, the most prominent one of which is perhaps Hamas, a terrorist designated organization in the sort of Palestinian community. It's based in Egypt, but it has its branches all over the place, including hundreds, if not thousands, of front organizations in this country. And again, don't take my word for it. In the back of this book, we have published in its entirety a document published by the Muslim Brotherhood back in 1991, introduced into evidence in a federal prosecution, the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history. This explanatory memorandum not only describes the Muslim Brotherhood's mission in America as destroying Western civilization from within, sabotaging its miserable house by their hands, namely ours, but it also helpfully lists dozens of front organizations that they describe as organizations of that are ours or those of our friends. Imagine what could be accomplished if they all marched together. This is required reading. Shariah, the Threat to America. Get it at Amazon.
Frank Gaffney, we're going to have to leave it there from D.C. Appreciate your time, my friend.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.